Like Star Wars collectibles? We all do. Today we are talking with the guys from Holochronicles all about Star Wars collecting. All this and more on Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge. And today I have with me a PCGE first, 2 co-pilots. So we're a full cockpit tonight. I have Andy and Josh from the Holochronicles. How are you, gentlemen?
We're great, Shannon. Thanks for having us. This is pretty fantastic.
This is the longest Skype distance I've ever done before, so it's pretty exciting stuff.
Nice.
No, we're in the same cockpit. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we're all together in the same cockpit.
So, how are you guys? It's been a bit of a crazy couple of weeks. Like, yeah.
I can start. It is kind of crazy because this is a global thing, which we're not used to. You know, hey, we deal a lot in Star Wars on a galactic level, right? So
correct.
All systems are affected, and that's how we feel right now. All systems are currently affected by this, and you're in London, and we're over here in the Great Northwest, and man, kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
We're figuring out what to do with the little time on our hands. It's different. It's different. We're encouraged to stay inside. It's not full lockdown, shelter in place or anything like that. But we're definitely charting some untested waters here. So, and it sounds like everybody is. So we're all in the same boat.
It's very bizarre because it's like, I can't speak obviously for you guys in the Pacific Northwest, but like I went to the shops the other day and there was like nothing on the shelves. And I mean, you know, stuff like you see in the like films, but at the same time, it's just like, what did someone say? It was like a calm panic. Now, obviously in Britain, they're very kind of, you know, keep calm, carry on. And it's very true based on that saying, but it's really bizarre. Like I left the office today and everyone was like, okay, I guess I'll see you when I see you. Like, there's no, like, when are we coming back? What's going on? But yeah, anyway, as long as you guys are doing well and your families are doing well, and I'm excited and happy to kind of be doing a podcast and just having some good positivity and things. But of course, I feel like it always should be addressed kind of what also is going on.
Yeah, it's a healthy distraction.
Yes, very much so. So for first time like listeners to your podcast and things, can you tell us like what the the Holochronicles is, how it started, where you guys came up with the idea? I absolutely loved that you guys just had your first annual award show. That was awesome. And let me tell you that the production value was top notch, and you did it on Periscope. Very impressed.
Well,
very impressed.
Knowing what you do for a living, Shannon, thank you very much. That's high praise. And Josh gets a lot of the editing credit for that. So.
Well, it was a collaboration. It was a collaboration of, shameless, self-serving awards. I think, how many awards did we take home in our own award show?
Oh, man.
I think it's like 4 or 5, which is, that's how it should be if you're going to run an award show.
Yes.
Yeah. So no, first thing we did with Holochronicles was come up with a name that was difficult to pronounce. So I think we succeeded there.
It's perfect for marketing.
How do you spell that? Yeah, I couldn't even spell it for like the first 10 pods, but Andy and I have known each other a long time. We tell this story on our pod a bit, but we'll just do a quick recap. And our collecting circles passed through each other, and we like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, you collect Star? Hey, you collect Star? You know, and of course, we just decided after a little bit of time of doing our own, we call it the BMB, which is the Blue Milk Brigade, was the super cool name we came up with for our little collector group. And
nice.
We decided that, hey, I like doing things with technology and anything like that. So, hey, well, why don't we do a pod? So that's how that started. Andy has another he wants to add right now. I can tell. Go.
Well, I was just going to say to that point, originally there was about 4 of us that the love of Star Wars kind of crossed paths. No, some of us were friends prior and some of us became friends through this, but it was a common denominator for the 4 of us that we got to talk and chat and get to know each other a little bit better in a different way. And it was fun. And that was kind of the thing that really stood out. This is fun. It's a lot more fun when you're doing it with your buddies and with your friends than doing it on your own. Because what we do now and what we have done is we network about it. We all kind of know what each other's into and likes. And so whenever one of us happens to be out and about and sees something or checking, any of the Facebook Market or Craigslist or anything like that, we come across something, we share it. And we've got, it went from the 4 of us to now there's a bunch of people who we've met through Twitter and doing the podcast that now we see something that's like, oh yeah, ding, the light bulb goes off. That reminds me of this person. I'm going to shoot him a quick message. Hey, is this something you're interested in? Because I'm staring at it right now and I can grab it if you need it.
Nice.
And I love that networking. It's fun. For me, that's fun. And I think once you get to the kind of the just beyond casual fanness of it, it goes to another level. And that's what we find pretty exciting.
No, well, I'm very excited to talk about you guys because I would say you're probably kind of like the first podcast that's like an interesting niche, that it's not just you're talking about like kind of just current events or things like that. And I think we kind of were saying this off like kind of before we started recording. I think one of the first things that got me into Star Wars, one was the music, but again was, I could tell you like my first action figures and things, and it's just really exciting. And that's why, and like my new thing is kind of like Funko Pops. Now I definitely don't have like tons and tons and tons. I kind of make a rule where it's like, okay, you get 1 per film or something. Maybe I might have to make a few exceptions for the Rise of Skywalker because I still hadn't done a Kylo Ren yet, and his is pretty badass. But so yeah, I was very excited to kind of chat to you guys. So
be careful
I'm
with
excited.
Those Funkos, man. They multiply quick.
Oh yes, like my better half already is like, it doesn't even move. It's just a piece of plastic.
The head bobbles.
You tap it on the head.
Like, the head bobbles. Like, not all of them bobble, which I also think is fascinating about Funkos. Some, like the Star Wars ones, have the big feet, but then the other ones, like I have some from like other films, like they're smaller. It's interesting that even within the kind of company, there's different.
Well, we had Matt Norris from Pop Vinyl on our pod, and he cleared some of that up. I thought was fascinating, and that was
really?
and I'm gonna totally probably mess this up, but it was because of Lucasfilm's, what is it? Their licensing with
statues.
Statues,
action figures and statues. They're exclusive to a couple of different areas that Funko couldn't step on.
Yeah.
And so that's why
they have bases and their feet do not move, because if their feet were able to articulate, then they would be an action figure. So that's how they got around that licensing deal. And real fascinating stuff there. And
if their heads didn't bobble, if they weren't considered a bobblehead, they'd be considered a statuette.
Yeah.
So that's how they navigated the licensing agreements that Lucasfilm had exclusively with other groups, so that they could produce Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
That actually is absolutely fascinating to me. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because I did wonder. I was like, I knew it had to be a licensing thing or something. I was like, something's up. Like, there's got to be a reason. Because you're right. They're also one of the few that has bases, which of course is quite cool as well. But having a few non-Star Wars Funko Pops, I'm like, hang on a second. So that makes perfect sense. And you just made my inner fangirl just that much more excited. Thank you.
One more thing to add on that. The very first Star Wars Funko Pops, the base is detached, and yes. Disney, Lucasfilm said, no, you can't do that.
Yep.
And so now all of the bases are attached. You can't take them off now. But on the first few, yeah, really? you could remove them from the base. They had little foot pegs that you could slide them into.
Oh yeah, like, because all of mine have foot pegs. Like, that's why I'm surprised, because interesting. So maybe it's been that long since I've had newer ones that, all of mine, the base, I don't put them on the bases. I'm bad.
So, no, that's fine. They're out of the box. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think the only one that it's above me, the only one that I definitely will keep in the box is I got a exclusive like Mufasa from Pop in a Box, which is, I believe, a UK subscription thing. It's Pop Vinyls because it does various subscription kind of websites and things. But and he's blue, so it's like he's in the stars. And because I worked on The Lion King, that
cool.
and that sequence means so much to me that I was just like, yeah, you're the one. And the two I got from Celebration Europe, those two have stayed in the box. But the rest, they made it onto mini of a desk, and yeah.
Well, in the box, they stack nicely, so you can display them.
Yes, this is very true. For those who are first-time listeners to Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, one of the things that we do on this podcast is we broadcast from a different Canon planet or moon of my guest's choice. And today we are actually heading off to, is it Dathomir? Dathomir.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to hand it over to Jerry, who is our resident Canon junkie, who's going to tell us a little bit about it.
Thanks, Shannon. Brace your nerves and call your priest, because we're heading to really red, really creepy Dathomir. Dathomir, nicknamed the Rancor planet, was a remote, natural planet in the Quelly sector, and the home of the Night Sisters and Night Brothers. The planet, lit red by its central star, had numerous continents that were overrun with vegetation, forests, and swamplands. The dark side of the Force had an immensely strong presence on Dathomir, which allowed for the nurturing of many malevolent Force wielders, such as Darth Maul and Asajj Ventress. The Night Sisters, also known as the Dathomir Witches, made their home in the swamps and wielded magics fueled by Dathomir's own power. Dathomir was also home to the Night Brothers, Zabraks, who were ruled by the Night Sisters. It was also the homeworld of semi-sentient Rancor species and the leader of the Night Sisters, Mother Talzin, a rival to Darth Sidious himself. There you have it. So set course, Shannon, and let's head to this really, really scary place. Dathomir has many, many canon appearances in novels, comics, and video games. Shannon, back to you, Cap.
Thanks for that, Jerry. Yeah, so why Dathomir, guys?
There's two reasons, really. There's just really two reasons. The first reason is both Josh and I are big Darth Maul fans, and even Savage Opress in the Clone Wars. So those two guys kick a lot of butt.
Yes.
And we're just impressed with them. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm rabbit trailing here, but Darth Maul kicks butt when it comes to everybody except Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? That's his blind spot. That's his weak spot.
It's his Achilles heel.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi kicks all butt except Count Dooku. Like, that's his blind spot.
Well, and Vader, to be honest.
Well, he kind of
I mean, you know.
He let him.
Obi-Wan had round one.
All right.
But it's just, I don't know. I just thought of that out of the blue. Anyway, but Darth Maul, we're big Darth Maul fans. And then.
Now, I'm a bit of a Night Sister fan too, though. So
that was kind of leading into the second one. And this is more of a Josh thing, because he's into the video games a lot more than I am. But go ahead, Josh.
Dathomir on Jedi Fallen Order is one of the most terrifying planets you can visit in that game. And it's even funny because if, spoiler alert, but if you play that game, one of your quest companion kind of characters that do the filler in between is this little pilot. I don't remember his name, but somebody will. And he's like, Dathomir. Oh, I hate Dathomir because it's terrifying.
Nice.
You go there and there's ancient Zepho ruins, and the brothers are there, which are obviously the Maul, kindred, and it's scary. It's a tough fight. Every time you go to Dathomir in that game, you're like, oh man, because there's bad guys everywhere. But it's also one of the most visually textured planets in that game. I know I'm nerding out on video games here, but it's really cool. Lots of sandscape. What's that place in the Middle East? It's where they filmed the Last Crusade.
Petra.
But
Petra, yeah.
So I listened to a bit of the devs talk about their developing of Dathomir, and they used Petra. You called it? Did I say that? Yeah. They used Petra as kind of their model. So It has this very monolithic looking feel, but also desert and just kind of ominous, so pretty cool. Dathomir. That's Dathomir.
Love it. Yeah, it is definitely something I might be getting into now that I have a little bit more time on my hands, is finally playing Jedi Fallen Order. So I know people have said, do not go to Dathomir right away. Kind of build yourself up, level up, and then go there kind of thing.
As a Star Wars fan, and especially as an avid Star Wars fan like yourself, I beg you to play that game. I don't care what your skill level is. Just play that game.
It's literally...
Put it all the way down to Padawan and play the heck out of it.
Yeah,
it's great.
It was literally one of those, I thought I was getting it for Christmas, and then I didn't, and then I just haven't had time to buy it. So, yes, it's on there. I'll be streaming it, all sorts of stuff. It's just, it just has...
Do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Did Santa not think you were good this year?
Yes, well,
what
no.
happened?
Santa decided to treat me and take me to Disney World instead.
Well,
I see.
I guess if there's a silver medal, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, so I got to ride like Rise of the Resistance like the week it opened up. So
yes.
I mean,
well, good job, Santa.
Yes, they're awesome. Great. So, I thought we kind of just jump now into the main discussion. We've kind of touched on it a little bit, was kind of just Star Wars merchandise, what has changed, better or for worse. Has online shopping affected like sales and how we kind of get our merchandise and things like that. So I think I'll first start off with kind of what is for each of you, what's kind of your holy grail thing in your collection that's just, you're like, anytime you're having a bad day or something like that you just look at it and it just fills you with joy.
All right, Andy's pointing at me first. Well, that question is the broad question. I can tell you about the Holy Grail, but that'll kind of lead me down one avenue of acquiring toys. And I know that you just mentioned online, which I think we can both jump in on. But first, I'll talk about my Holy Grail, which is a Fisher Mayhew. And I'm just in love with it. And I found this at a con, at Summer Con, which is up in kind of south, where you were born, up in the Tacoma area, a little north, Kent area. So, and it was, Carrie, it was Leia and Chewie, and I believe it was a promo pic from SNL. Yeah. And the pic, if you don't mind, is of Chewie with his hand maybe placed in a spot that is shocking for Leia, and she is displaying her shock. And it's signed by both of them. And wow. And I spent some money on it, but even in hindsight, it's only been a year. It wasn't enough money, because in my opinion, I was like, I feel like I stole it. And it's my grail. It sits there. As a matter of fact, on the last pod, I kind of featured it over my shoulder because we kind of do some funky stuff with green screens. And man, I'll tell you what, if you just, into my little man cave, if I walk in, I'll just stop sometimes and just, look at it and look at the signatures. I mean, I'm a big fan and collector of signed memorabilia. I think it holds a perceived value for me that is far beyond probably what it'll ever be worth. So to someone else, but to me, that signature is a direct connection to the especially the person that played the character, but almost to the character themselves. So I just feel I feel good when I look at them. And I got a few, you know, and as a matter of fact, I love showing them off. I love not showing them off, but like saying, "Hey, look at that. Look at that. You see that? You see that?"
Well, and
nice. Well, especially when those two are no longer with us too. Which is also...
Well, I like it. I like yours too, Josh, because it's a goofy picture, right?
It's
Chewie acting not like how Chewie acts, and it's totally staged.
And Carrie acting exactly like she acted.
Yeah,
you know, so I just love it so much. And they're in character though, which is just it's this. Thank you for pointing that out, because it's absolutely accurate. It's this cross section of what we love, you know, because as a super fan, you love Carrie Fisher for who she was. You love Peter for how much he put into his character, and you learn that watching Jonas on some of the behind the scenes where like he's like, this is how you walk, you know. I mean, and then you realize like, oh, it wasn't just putting on a furry suit. Like Peter was Chewbacca. Like Chewbacca is nothing without Peter, you know. And it's so cool. So I just love that. And then to see him kind of cross lines there and become fun and playful, and probably their you know, out of character ways in character is super cool.
Yeah, you can't tell where Peter Mayhew stops and Chewie begins.
No, especially when he's got that dark eye makeup on after he's taken off the mask, and you're just like, he's still Chewie.
He's still Chewie. That's still Chewie. Yeah, yeah. My Holy Grail piece is something that I just got recently. Pretty excited about it too, Shannon. Thank you for asking. I did a big trade, and you can hear about how it all went down on our last podcast. Because again, I just got this a couple weeks ago, but it's a Return of the Jedi carded Boba Fett, you know, on the card. So it's never been opened. So that figure from 1983. Is in a little acrylic case for me now, and it is something that I look at every time I walk into my little Star Wars room, and it makes me want to high five something, you know, when I see it. It's Boba Fett's maybe my favorite, top 3 for sure. And so to get a carded Boba Fett that's never been touched by human hands, you know, that he's in the packaging still, and and it's a nice clear bubble, you can still see him, and he's perfect. Like, that's pretty awesome. To me, that's a Holy Grail piece for me. So
nice. Very nice. Yeah, I know what you mean about the whole signature thing. Something that I have in the room in here was, I think it was about 2 years before she passed. Carrie Fisher was at just like wasn't even like celebration. It was just like a small kind of London Comic-Con. And me and my better half, we had this agreement that we were going to get an autograph. But the deal was I got my name on it, but she got to speak to her. And I was like, okay, fair enough, kind of thing. And I remember we waited in line, and you can tell she started writing my name, but my name has various variations. So there's a pause in the signature. The YouTube episode, I'll put a picture up now. There's a pause in the signature where you can see where she stopped, and she just was like, 2 N's or 1? And it's the only time I spoke to her. I was like, 2, please. Why I said please, but you know, it's Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, Your Highness would have been more proper.
Probably, but you know, and
General.
Then you can see she continues on. But it was interesting because there was also this like moment of like vulnerability, because you could tell like she was like, oh shit, I need to ask, but I don't know if like she didn't want to mess it up either. And it was just this very kind of like simple but profound moment. And then we mentioned actually, instead of Star Wars, because everyone knows her for Star Wars, we were actually saying we really enjoyed her as an author, and her books really kind of spoke to us. And you know, I forget what the rest was said, but basically Carrie said to like me and my better half, kind of embrace the weird, because we said, yeah, sometimes people think we're a bit weird. She's like, no, that's great, embrace the weird, and then signed it and went on our way. But yeah, it's just great. There's just that moment. I look at that, especially now, that signature, that I'm just like, yeah, there's that moment where there's that hesitation of, oh crap, is there 2 N's or 1 N or, you know, things like that. And then...
And you have it in indelible form, right? It's there, the little pause. You can find the pause.
Yeah, exactly. I literally looked at it.
Very cool.
I looked at it yesterday because I was thinking about that right before we went recording, and I was like, yeah, there it is, because she's proper cursive or joined up, as they say here in England, which is funny for me. But so you can see the break. It's a really kind of cool moment. And then it's funny you mentioned Boba Fett. Because that was one of the other things that we were talking about before we started recording was I think it was called The Power of the Force, and later became like Power of the Jedi, but it was the ones with the orange kind of lightsaber card in the back. I have a Boba Fett. And even then, I knew, even though Boba Fett, I'm kind of like, he's a little overrated, but I always wonder why he's so like the collector's fascination. You know, I guess I appreciated him more because now the Mandalorian, and like now kind of talking to the Mando mercs and learning the more Mandalorian culture and things. But even though I guess he's now technically not a Mandalorian, but I digress. But I even have mine is
you watch what you say here, Shannon.
I know.
Treading some tricky waters here.
I'm like tap dancing in a minefield.
What is a Mandalorian?
It's a creed.
That is a great question.
It is. That's a whole other discussion, but I could go on for that. But even then, I had taken him out of the box, obviously, but he's also in like a little plastic. I don't even know what these plastic boxes were meant for, but it got it at Hobby Lobby, and yeah, he's in there and he's at home, safe and sound. So or as safe and sound as it can be. But yeah, so.
Well, I think he resonated with a lot of the original trilogy people. And, you know, keep in mind, the Mandalorian backstory has been blown up, especially in the last couple years. But, you know, what that means to be a Mandalorian and the history of Mandalore and all that stuff. You know, we didn't have all that when Empire Strikes Back came out, you know. He was just a guy in a really cool outfit with like a gladiator type helmet that there was a lot of mystery behind him. So when you're playing with him with an action figure that looks cool and you really don't know much about him, he can be and do whatever he wants. And I think that's why so many original trilogy people think he's so cool. And then that, of course, then just gets passed down and like, oh, you know, Dad thought this guy was pretty cool, so now I think he's pretty cool. And it just kind of perpetuates itself. And then now we get to where we know story and history and lore of Mandalorians and what that actually means, you know, even though he's a clone essentially, but I mean, that's getting into the weeds, but I think that just makes him probably even cooler because he was like the original, he was the introduction to Star Wars to all of that. So that's my short answer of why he's such an overrated character. But you're right, he didn't really do much, and he kind of died in a lame way. Or did he die?
Wow, this is. We'll go to some slight speculation nation here, but I because I know some people were like, oh, do we want him to show up in the Mandalorian and things like that?
Or did he already?
Well, yes, because yes, of the boots and the spur sound.
Clink.
Also,
clink.
Why it's interesting that the slate, the clapperboard, has the kind of yin and yang koi fish. And then also, I would love it if the guy who played him as in the Attack of the Clones, is his name Daniel Logan, the actor?
Daniel Logan.
I would love it if he actually reprises that role. Like, I am all for people coming back and reprising their roles and just...
You know who else is a big fan of that idea? Daniel Logan.
I know.
He wants that to happen bad.
Yeah, so
like that's no secret.
Speaking of which, I mean, it literally just broke like a couple of hours ago. I know, slightly off our general topic, but I'm going to ask anyway. What are you guys thinking about this whole Rosario Dawson casting? Do you think it's legit? Do you?
I think it's awesome.
Have no idea if it's legit though, but
right.
Yeah, I did not dig in, but when I saw her, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think you need somebody who's, fairly athletic to play that. And strangely enough, I think she can do it because of the movie she was in with Kevin James about the zookeeper. She was spinning her. Anyway, I think she will be great at that. If this is indeed true, I think it would be hard pressed to find a better person.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it's true. It's just a shame. Like, I guess I just wish it hadn't gotten spoiled. I mean, like Baby Yoda, we never got spoiled. And then
So that might be why it's not real.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
That might be why it might just be, let's get some more topics on there, which is fine. I mean, I like to speculate as much as anyone else, but
about positive things in the current
yeah,
times,
and that's
too.
positive.
I mean, like, oh, we'll just throw this out there, see what people say. I mean, even if it's not true, at least for a few hours, we can be like, yeah, that's cool.
Where'd it come from? What was the
it's from
source?
/film. Which /film,
Okay.
I mean, that's a pretty big thing. It's not like okay, I won't mention some other sites, but
Like the Holochronicles.
no.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
I mean, it is interesting. Star Wars Newsnet did kind of go with it a little bit, and they're usually quite good on their fact checking and things. So it might be pretty legit. And I wonder if they're going to do kind of a Ray Park, Sam Witwer thing, where one is the body and one is the voice. So Ashley, I'm so bad with these surnames, as also she's still the voice, because obviously there's going to be so many fans that are going to be like, no, she is Ahsoka Tano. So I mean, just like pretty much Darth Maul is Ray Park and Sam Witwer, even though he's, to me, is Star Killer, but that was my introduction to him, going back to video games and things.
Yeah.
But that also goes back to you guys' love of Darth Maul and Savage Opress and things. But
So just this week, I posted on Twitter that I got my first Sideshow collectible, and it's a Darth Maul. It's a Darth Maul, and I said, this thing's awesome. It looks just like Ray Park, and I tagged him in it, and bang, he liked it.
oh,
Man,
that's
I was like,
amazing.
yes.
I love when
He didn't
freaking
say
cool,
anything, which is Ray Park-esque, but he
Right.
did scowl at it.
Yeah, he definitely gave it a stern look. But no, man, sideshows are incredible.
Oh man, yeah, it's and I only have seen it in the picture that you posted, and the likeness is
how big is it?
Uncanny.
Like, how is it big? Like,
Well, it's 1/6 the size, so I would say it's maybe 12 inches.
oh, okay.
Ray Park, 6 feet
not-
tall.
Yeah, Ray Park's not very tall.
5'9".
Yeah, he's 5. I don't know, but he's not tall.
Yeah.
He's not a tall man, but so yeah, it's maybe in the 10 to 12 inch
Oh,
range.
okay.
Probably not quite 12 inches, but I'll post a picture with something to scale next to it, like a banana or something.
Nice. Do you guys
Potato.
remember there was like a line of figures that came out that was called I think it was called like Force Unleashed, but it wasn't like the game. But I had one where it was like Luke Skywalker, and his green lightsaber was this massive piece of plastic, and you had to balance him just right. But there's a Darth Maul one, I think, of that same range, where it's like if the lightsaber had been spinning and it's this massive, almost cyclone around him kind of things. You guys?
Yeah, the Force Unleashed figures were very, over the top, kind of like almost graphic novel type representations of the characters. I have a Force Unleashed boba,
I was
actually.
say, is it the Sarlacc pit
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just black, and there's just flame all below him. It's very graphic, and he's blast. You know, it's like Boba did what Boba should have done. You know, I mean, Force Unleashed is like the most, you know, Schwarzenegger of versions of the characters.
I love
you
it.
know, so
Absolutely. I wonder where that went. That's probably in a box in America somewhere as well, probably with the other ones. But yeah.
Tell us where.
Just wait, she did
Leavenworth,
earlier.
We'll go
Kansas.
find it.
It's in Leavenworth,
We narrowed
Kansas.
it down to a state. That's all we need.
Oh, the shipping on
Kansas
that.
is
We're gonna
amazing.
start our own series called American Collectors and Finding Shannon's Treasure. That's what we'll do.
Yes. Put it on the History Channel.
Yeah.
Finding
Nice.
Shannon's Treasure.
Nice. Kind of talking into it, kind of like leading into like shipping and online and things. Do you feel kind of now with online shopping and things, you lose that kind of, oh, I found this at the store? Like, what is your opinions on like trying to find collectibles and things nowadays with such things like eBay and just online shopping and things like that? Do you think it helps it, hurts it, both?
I think it helps it. And I even like the easy answer is to say both. Like, oh yeah, it's both. It's good. It's bad. I'll do it as quick as I can. Here's my quick reasoning why. I originally collected anything via finding it at a store, right? Which I think is important and fun and gratifying. However, when we described our little group here, when we first started kind of like, hey, let's collect together, it became this very it was very well put together kind of combination of all types of collecting. However, I got to jumpstart my collection by being able to go and grab it online really quickly and make some mistakes and be like, oh, I paid too much for that. Or, oh, this isn't what I paid for, you know, but not too much. It wasn't bad. I do not want to say, I know that there's scammers out there, but my experience online shopping has been pretty good. However, going out into the field when we had things like those retro action figures show up and it's like they're at Target, it's during Father's Day, and then we had to get up early and we're like, you go to this Target, I'll go to that Target, I'm going to be down in this city, so I'll hit these 4 Targets and you're going north, you hit that was a whole different experience. Was it better than getting the pristine graded thing in the mail? Probably, maybe, but it wasn't a replacement. It was just an augmentation to the whole collecting experience. And then there's the you have eBay, which is way out, you're almost in the kind of the Walmart of online bidding. But then you have like the little, and Andy's huge on this, the little offer ups, which is kind of a step up from Craigslist, and that gets a little darker and dirtier as far as your negotiations and where you're driving to pick these things up.
It's the Moss Isley of garage sale trading. So
and then we even had going to a garage. I mean, I went to a garage sale and I was like, whoa, what's all this? And 90% of it was not fun to collect, but 100% of it was Star Wars. So I'm like, yeah, nice. I'll buy all of that. So all of this kind of, in my opinion, I see no bad as far as being a safe collect. I see no bad in any avenue, and I don't see one kind of taking, because then you can even dive down, and I want to go, and I'll let Andy talk here, but you can even dive down like Facebook groups have these really and fantastic deals out of the UK, which I don't see on OfferUp or eBay. Well, you can see them on eBay, but not as much, where these Facebook groups, half the time I'm looking at the prices, it's in pounds, and I'm like, oh, what's that? I'm trying to do the math. It always looks better for me. I'm like, oh man, it's only 75. Oh wait, that's 125. So anyway, I find it to be a fascinating experience, and if you want to do it right, you do all of it. You just do it. You're never just like, well, I only get my stuff off eBay, or I only buy it personally. I think it's it's easy to balance them all.
There's a time element that will always be a factor. If you need something now, online is the best way to do it. I personally feel like all of the things that I love in my collection, I got through a person-to-person transaction.
Nice.
Like, we shook hands on it. We traded something that we both walked away from feeling good about. And, you know, that to me has a level of satisfaction that that maybe isn't quite there online. Although it is pretty exciting to win an auction where there's a bunch of people bidding. Like, that's a rush.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think about, like, I don't know. I prefer talking to people. You learn a little bit about them. They learn a little bit about you. But I gotta say, though, without online, I wouldn't be nearly as wise or as smart as I would be otherwise, because, you know, what I have in my data bank now is not just a kind of a good, like eBay. If you check the sold items on eBay, that is a great place to reference prices. Like, what are things going for? And so if you have that kind of in the back of your head before you go out and talk to people, or garage sailing, or Craigslist, OfferUp, whatever the app you might be looking at, without that, you can get swindled, and it can happen real quick. But that online knowledge, being able to access those things, just makes you a smarter buyer, a smarter seller. It'll weed out the players from the contenders, so to speak. And it really is, to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's a symbiotic relationship where at this point, Josh, at this point, you kind of do need to have both. For me, the vintage stuff, the vintage stuff for me is always best person to person. That way you can actually see it and the condition it's in. The newer stuff for me, like Pops or Black Series or whatever it is, that to me can be done online, or go hunting in a store to find that from. But it kind of, I guess all of that to say is it depends on what I'm looking for, to be honest. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like
it did. That was great. No, that was great.
I think you're getting two sides of the, because Andy really, like he just described it, like he likes that person to person. I'm a poor negotiator. I just really am. And when I get into that person to person environment, I like it, but I'm usually a pleaser. And by a pleaser, I mean, what's your top price? Okay, I'll take it. Where I'm not saying Andy's some kind of master, you know, get him down to the lowest price, but he's also got the ability to kind of talk people where they're like, okay, you know what you're talking about. Here's the price. And you know, or I'm more like, you know what, I'm just going to go fire and forget online. I agree with that price. We'll all agree with that price. And then I'll hopefully feel better about it later. But that transitions me over into, because like you said, with the Pops and the Black Series, Andy, Hasbro Pulse. I mean, Hasbro Pulse, from really, you know, as limited as my sphere is on all the toys that are released, because there's people out there that know about every comic and every, you know, Pop and every other, you know, off-brand Star Wars merchandise. Hasbro, when it put the barge out, that put on the map to me kind of getting into the mainstream collecting of stuff online, which is kind of a gimmick, but it's fun. It's fun to like show up and prepay for something, and then 6 months later you open your door and UPS has dropped off something you forgot you purchased, and you're like, oh dude, it showed up. It's the thing. Remember, I forget. Yeah, it's that one thing. You know, like
the put it in your shopping cart for another time. You know, that's an underrated online thing to do. You know, and you just like I go to Entertainment Earth quite often just to check out what's going on, and I'll pre-order some things, and then I don't have to worry about it. I know eventually it's going to show up, and I don't care when. It'll be a surprise.
Nice.
I know I have 5 things, and I have no idea when they're showing up. There's like 5 really cool things, and it's like mini Christmas.
Nice.
It's just mini. Yeah. Who knows?
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like something we have over here called Forbidden Planet. I don't know if they do like pre-orders kind of thing, but
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like kind of the top end. That's where you can see all, like, I love it because I go in the one in London that actually is just down the street from ILM actually, and you walk in and there's all the hot toys, and so you get to see those like super expensive kind of Star Wars ones where it's got like the fabrics and the things and and you're just like, God, those look great, but oh, that's like 300 pounds. I'm just like, I think that's why, like, I just saw some like images of the Mandalorian and I was like, I think that's the only one I would ever buy, but space here and where I live is at a bit of a premium. That's why a lot of my collection now is actually like posters or little things like kyber crystals from like Galaxy's Edge or like, pops, because it's funny also kind of like for where I work. I've worked at a couple kind of companies now, visual effects wise, and it's amazing. Everyone has a pop on their desk, but it's also almost like an expression of who they are. Like you can tell like what fandoms they're in. So hands down, at least every visual effects person has at least one Star Wars pop, and then there are other ones, like sometimes like it'll be with what like a show they worked on, like I still need to get one, but get one for Dark Crystal and things. So it's just kind of funny how it's almost like an extension of you per se, and it's these simple little, I don't know if they're 6 inches, 4 inches, I guess it depends, but yeah. And I love how they've become more detailed over the years. Like you look at the kind of the first Star Wars ones, they're very simple, but then now like they're very complex. The hair is very complex now, the molds, they just are constantly evolving. And it's weird also, like you don't get a mouth or anything for the most part, and you can still go, yeah, I can totally tell that's Felicity Jones or that's, Daisy Ridley in that character. You can see it. You're like, yeah, I can tell exactly who you're supposed to be. But yeah.
I think people's collections are absolutely one thing or 100 things are absolutely a great reflection of who they are. Now, sometimes that collection could be, everything, right? So then you could reflect like, oh, you're a person that likes to cover the spectrum, right? Or we've seen some amazing collections that are hyper focused with our hashtag show me your collection on Saturday, like hundreds of stormtroopers or hundreds of Boba Fett's or wampas. We just had the wampa come. Did you see that? I saw a guy with just a wall of wampas, and you're like, what
That's amazing
kind of person. And then you're just like, I want to talk to this person. Tell me about why you would put 100 wampas, all vintage, not even variants of wampas. So now you're getting even more granular in your psyche, and you're like, tell me. And then to talk to this person would be, I don't know. You could make a Netflix series out of a specific collection. So I love that you said that collections, sometimes one thing maybe on their desk might be like, hey, I'm a Dwight Schrute or I'm a Darth Maul. Yeah. So look out, or I'm a Reylo. It's okay. I got Kylo and Rey on there, get me. It's a fine, whatever. Yeah. But I don't know.
Or it's their identity of who they think they are in their most perfect form.
Sure. Or like, they want to be.
Like when the apocalypse hits, I will be Darth Maul.
For about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I could just hear the theme now. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite pop that I always make sure she's on my desk is actually the Rey from, it was technically the Force Awakens line. And she's giving the lightsaber to Luke. Oh yeah. That sucked, because it was really weird because like it was hard to I remember like the first one I actually ever got was BB-8, and I got it when I got pre-ordered The Force Awakens on Blu-ray or whatever. It was like a Disney store kind of exclusive, like, hey, you pre-order, you get a pop included. But I wanted the Rey, but she had all the ones in the Disney store had the little like hood and goggles on. I was like, no, I want her hair. And then that's when I was learning there was all these variants where I was like, oh, and then now there's one with, you see her hair and all this. I was like, oh my God, I'm just going down this massive rabbit hole. But to kind of wrap our discussion up, for you two gentlemen as collectors, what are your collections? Do you collect a lot of different things? Do you collect specific things? Like,
well, so for me, it's all Star Wars. It's only Star Wars. I do have a couple of shelves of G.I. Joe things from when I was a kid, because I have two younger brothers, and we were all kind of into that for a few years. And then even though we were all into different things, we all kind of shared that for a few years. So I still have those as kind of a homage to me and my brother's childhood, but it's all Star Wars. It's everything. There's not, like, I got lunchboxes and posters and figures, pops, some Black Series. I mean, there's really, it's a shotgun approach a little bit. I do find that I have a little section just for the bounty hunters and Boba Fett, and I do have a little section of a shelf system where I have Lego Republic ships. And then, just like I've got my little spots where it's a bit focused and I can kind of congregate like items, even though they maybe might include a vintage and a Funko and a Black Series and a Power of the Force. And, it's not necessarily a line specific, but more of a character kind of grouping. But it's really, the weirder, the better. And it's filling up a room full of Star Wars things. And so it's a little bit of everything for me. I will still hunt for vintage things, even though I've got them, but because I always like the deal, that the art of the deal. But moving forward, it's definitely the weirder or more obscure or less known kind of items that I really kind of want to get. So we'll see how that goes. But it's really non-specific other than to say Star Wars. I collect Star Wars toys and memorabilia.
Nice.
I'd agree with that. Andy and I obviously share kind of similar collecting styles. So I have to agree with pretty much everything he said there. Obviously, for me, it's more about I don't know. It's more about the feeling I have when I look at whatever it is. If you want to be real cool, you can call it the piece. When I'm looking at the piece, I decide. But also, it's like, look, let's face it. As a collector, if you're a collector, which Andy and I identified in each other early on. Oh, you're a collector. Oh, you are too. It's pretty much like a meeting that we should probably attend. I mean, we're addicted. And the addiction, though, can go to different levels. One is acquiring stuff. Well, you have to be careful with acquiring stuff. And we've given this out a few times on our pod. For me, my coping mechanism was to finally say, Josh, you don't have to have everything. As a matter of fact, if someone else has it in their collection, that's an exciting experience for you to go and view it. I don't want to have a collection that somebody else has, right? I don't want to be like, oh, I got that too. So then I had to be, okay, so there's a competitive side. Instead, it's like Andy says, I'm getting this, and I say, fantastic. When's the next time I can come up and look at it? Not own it, come up and look at it and just be in awe of it for a minute. And Andy does the same thing. And not just Andy, our other friends in the collecting come over and they'll walk into my room, which, by the way, as a collector, as recluse as you may be, you kind of want somebody to come in and admire your collection, yes. Right? Isn't that the deal? Right? I mean, you're admiring it. I will look at my Fisher Mayhew all day long. But if somebody walks in and goes, oh my God, And I'm kind of like, yeah, right. I know, right? You know, but if they come in like, oh yeah, I got that one too, that's not as fun. So why wouldn't you provide that experience back to your other collector? So kind of the mantra we put together, Andy ended up selling me a bunch of his Black Series stuff because I was into Black Series, and he said, you know what? I like Black Series. I want to have Black Series, but I don't want to have it as much as you do. And I want to get some other stuff, which he went and got, which I didn't go and get. And so now I have all this Black Series stuff, and he acquired it from a big collection, and I acquired it from him at an extreme markup, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And he's a fair dude. And so that's not answering your question, you know, but to pull it all back and wrap it up for you. Yeah, you know, we do kind of shotgun our approach. I love signatures. Like I said before, I love anything that has pen to picture. And then the Black Series fascinate me. They're exactly what a kid my age, when I was 6, would have loved in an action figure. The right size, the right detail,
the right articulation.
I mean, and then sharing somebody else's collection. That's my biggest point, is you don't have to own everything. And as a matter of fact, don't, so that you can go over to somebody else's collection and give them the praise and the adoration, the collection, and they deserve. Plain and simple.
Awesome. Oh, that's amazing. Guys, you have been absolutely fantastic. This has been really exciting having 2 co-pilots. So where can everybody find you?
You can find us on Twitter at Holochronicles, and you can find us on YouTube, same handle, and we're getting to be more of a presence on Instagram now. Well, I'm trying to post 1 a day, and it's the same at Chron, all 3 cases. You really feel like emailing us, we're holochronicles@gmail.com, and we would love to see what you're into. We'd love to see pictures of collections. In fact, every Saturday, we try to feature a follower's collection on Twitter using the hashtag #ShowMeYourCollection. And like Josh said, it's cool that all of our collections, though they may be Star Wars based, are all different. And we really get a kick out of seeing what other people are into, because we don't have everything, and we want to see what else is out there, how people are displaying, you know, what tricks they're using. Is it custom made stuff? Just like, we can go down the rabbit hole pretty deep on those, but we just love seeing what other people are into, because we're kind of in that, we will share that, and that will bring us together. So at Holochronicles, wherever you want to find us.
All the major pod networks.
Yeah, with Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter at PCGE_podcast, on Instagram at Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, and also on Twitch, where I do mostly Star Wars games and some third-person games, which is Shenanigan, spelled with an EN at the end, _plays.
Brilliant. Well, thank you guys, and thank you for tuning into Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, and we will see you guys next time.
So long from Dathomir.
So long from Dathomir.